Welcome back. Winning Plays Podcast, Rich Levine, Brian Robb. B-Rob, the preseason has officially begun. So if we say can we say the season has begun? I think so. It's basketball, it's NBA, it's basketball season. How about that?
From the TD Garden standpoint last night, regular season was here because that was I don't know if you heard that crowd at home, Rich, but that was they were bringing it for a preseason game.
The Boston Celtics played a game in which both Jays started. Pretty much everyone played
Yeah,
against another NBA team. There were fans in the stands. Basketball season has begun. That's what I'm going to say.
it's what's mark it down.
There's
I
your
like it.
title.
I like
There's
it,
your
Gary.
title
That's
right
it.
there.
Done.
Um, and I can't imagine, like, if you're talking about symbolism, like this new era of Celtics basketball. It's weird because Brad Stevens was part of the other era as well, but this is the President Brad Stevens era, the Ime Udoka uh, era, era.
Tongue twister.
Uh, there aren't many ways. You talk about the first hoop. I know it was just preseason, but that play, Jaylen Brown drives to the hoop, leaves his feet, kind of a dangerous play, kicks it out to Jason Tatum, back to Marcus Smart, little pump fake. The defense at this point, the Magic are not a great team. Anyways, the Magic defense is scrambling. Marcus Smart dishes it right back to Jason Tatum, a wide open three-pointer. And that kind of play, we didn't see very many of those last year. Maybe I want to say last few years, maybe just recency bias. At least last year, it had been a while since we'd seen a possession where the team just looked like a team, and you saw the result. That's how you start the era.
And then you followed up with 35% shooting and lots of bricks for the rest of the game. But no, you're right.
I don't care. I don't
We don't care
care.
about that. But the looks were good, as
I
Ime Udoka said after the game.
Yeah, I thought there was a lot of good, and again, like needing a Romeo Langford somewhat last second three pointer to beat one of the worst teams in the NBA. I don't care if it's preseason, not that great. I think there are a lot of positives to take from this game.
I agree. I like to your point, to the almost to a fault, there was almost too much passing in the first half, which Udoka talked about after the game, of guys trying to turning down shots for looking for even better shots, but losing that window of opportunity where that was the right shot. So there's clearly going to be a balancing act on that front. But I agree, Rich. Like those possessions, like you pointed out, were few and far between last season, even as the offense was coming along. And that's something where you need full team buy-in to get those, as well as playing with pace and Tatum and Brown just looking to you know move more and set up teammates more on top of getting the run on any particular night. And like we saw last night, Jalen had it going early. He got the ball a lot, and everyone else kind of like stood to the side in a good way. So as long as the shots start falling like that, Udoka is, I think, setting the tone well from an offensive standpoint. It seems to be translating better for next year. And I think a lot of that too is they also have new personnel that's helping on that front as well.
Yeah, personnel wise, we can just start at the top. We talk about the Jays. Obviously, Jalen, 25 points. Great. 4-12 from three, whatever. I like 11 foul shots between the two of them, 5 for 5 for Tatum, 5 for 6 for Brown. You even might like to see that a little bit higher once the season begins. But I think it's sort of setting a tone. They both look strong, like physically strong. And you saw some of the times, Jason, he got, I think he scored on Wagner a few times where, maybe, his first game, the dunk on Wendell Carter. Just generally speaking, I thought both of them physically looked like two guys that you're expecting to carry the load for the entirety of this year.
And you throw in the fact that Jalen Brown is coming off a wrist surgery. And not that he hasn't been able to do stuff the last few months, but this is, first live action as someone who has fractured their wrist several times and had surgery. Like that's not, I'm no, I'm not a pro athlete at all, but it's going to take time to readjust. You're going to have sore days and things like that. Much, times 10 if you're an athlete like Brown. But the fact he looked like it was not a noticeable part of his game, not a noticeable part of his shot in the early going, I think is very encouraging. And to your point, yeah, I mean that Tatum dunk on Carter, that is, I think, where you don't want Tatum to be living down there, but like when he has mismatches, if they're going to go with this big lineup, which we'll talk about in a bit, not this one specifically, but just with Tatum at the three, and he's going to have some mismatches down there. That's the type of aggression you want to see this year, because if he's not finishing those dunks, he should be at least getting to the line in those scenarios, because guys aren't going to be able to contain him down there.
You feel fully comfortable calling that a dunk? I mean, it was pretty close. Would have liked to see him throw it down a little bit harder. You know, it was
That's fair.
borderline. It was borderline like Dwight Howard and the dunk contest, kind of throwing it down from far away. A couple of, like, Blake Griffin used to have a few of those, but to meet again, like, Carter was there
Right.
and he jumped and he jumped. He wasn't off balance. He fully jumped to defend that dunk, and I maybe I have to rewatch it. But if Tatum is taking it to the hoop like that, good things are going to happen. It's that simple. So the Jays, we talked about the Jays. Marcus Smart, um, dude, and I know I say that the dive in the first, was it the first quarter?
Yeah, it was like it was like 4 minutes in the first quarter, I think.
And I know that's Marcus Smart, right? But that is what I say every time we talk about him. He needs to be healthy.
Yes. So
He needs to be
I
on the
love that you're
court.
coming up with this with not that good job. No, Marcus, like, what are you doing?
And he's being Marcus Smart. I understand, but like at some point, like as you get, how old is he now?
He's gotta be 27 is my guess. I have to look that up. That's off the top of my head.
27 years old. He'll be 28 years old in March. As you get closer to seventh NBA year, as you get closer to 30 and you play as hard as you do, and your team is counting on you now as the starting point guard as they are, man, the first quarter of the preseason, he took a couple charges. Again, I know that's Marcus, but I would actually be okay with him not playing the rest of the preseason. After seeing that, I don't feel comfortable taking that risk, knowing the way that he is going to put himself out there, regardless of what's on the line.
Well, here's your problem on that front, Rich. Now he's got his money, so there's no reason to protect himself anymore. He got paid, and
He likes to
you
play
know he
basketball. I think he
I
would
know, like,
like
and
to.
this is he embraces. This is what he lives for. Is it doesn't matter if it's 3 minutes into the opening preseason game or a minute left in Game 7 of the fourth quarter. Like that's what you can't tell him to not play what his instincts are, which is a problem because his instincts will get him hurt randomly. And so finding that line, like you said, the putting him in bubble wrap and just not letting him play for the preseason, that might be the answer here. But you're having to talk to the top guy on that one.
I love, like, in most cases, you would say, like, getting their money would be a spot where players don't play as hard. But you're saying Marcus is now going to play harder because
Yes,
he's got his money.
he's going to be more reckless, take more charges, dive more because now he doesn't. There isn't even that little voice in his head being like, "Hey, you can't get hurt because this is a contract year."
Well,
It's going to
I
go.
just hope he does it more. And I know I started this podcast by saying it's basketball season. Like, I hope he just could do it more in games that actually matter. Is all I'm
Yeah,
saying. I love to see him taking charges. I know that that's him, and maybe when the Celtics are putting up another banner next fall, uh, Udoka will talk about Marcus Smart diving on the floor in that first preseason game, setting the tone that's going to change this whole season. But in the event that that doesn't happen, I don't want to see it happen anymore. And we love Marcus, right? I hate harping on the negative. I thought that he looked all right as the point guard of this team, right? Like,
yeah. I mean, there was like everyone else, they had 8 turnovers in the first quarter. He had two very sloppy passes out of the gate, but then I mean that's preseason malaise more than concern about him. But yeah, that's I think that's the biggest area for me as seeing him take the point guard reins this year is you're going to get the energy, you're going to get the defense, the smart decision making offensively with like you can't be lazy with the passes. His turnover rate, we've seen years where it's been fantastic. It's been super low. We've seen years where it's been way too high if you're going to be a point guard. So if he can, bring that down to uh, a level where, you're not losing possessions because of bad passes, they're going to be a great spot because I think we saw last night the defense could be really good with this team if everyone's engaged and if Udoka's playing the right lineup. So it'll be, but there'll be a trade off offensively in that department if they go in that direction.
just so deep, so deep. And obviously we're like a little jaded coming off last season, especially where it was one of the more shallow NBA rosters that we've seen in a long, long time. But like, man, they go like 10. They go 10 deep. And I don't and we can talk about this. Maybe we can talk about this now. Like, I know Romeo shot the ball well. Maybe if he keeps shooting like that, he'll find himself some more playing time. But I don't even know a guy like Romeo Langford. When are you going to play? Who are you playing over? Like, he's certainly not playing over Neesmith. He's not, he's like, they're all like, where last year you couldn't find enough guys to go to. Now you're really going to have to put some guys. It's going to be hard for a lot of these guys to work themselves into the rotation.
100%. I mean, you just like the end of that game of like, okay, that was guys 9 through 13 on the roster that kind of pulled off the comeback for the Celtics. And then you looked at the guys, I know like the Magic, are rebuilding and don't have real depth and had a bunch of guys out, but like the Celtics probably had the 5 best players on the floor out of all 10 that finished that game. And that's, again, speaks to their depth, but I'm not sure where we're going. I mean, there's going to be an odd man out, probably multiple odd men out most nights here. And then same with Cantor. Like, how's Cantor going to play
Yeah,
if they're
he's
going to like? I mean, it might be a situation where Hernan Gomez, like that's a guy that Langford could play over if they embrace going small as opposed to having that extra size. And I think that's all the stuff they're trying to look at this preseason right now, being like, okay, which lineups make sense, which lineups have a rhythm, and then I guess they have to decide: do we really want to lean into the defense or the offense for a lot of these looks?
because even in some ways you look at like Richardson versus Neesmith. Like, is Neesmith definitely the eighth player? I make maybe the seventh guy on this team.
I mean, based on last, I mean, one game, but
Because Hernan
offensively,
Gomez started, but he's not obviously in the
right?
top, so take him off. Put Al in his
Yeah,
spot,
right.
and then you got Schroeder, you have Richardson, I guess, is 7,
Yeah,
and
I think by
and
default,
then
and then
Pritchard,
after that, it's
Neesmith.
right free for all. And so that's where the
That's a solid top
question is going
9.
to be: if you're the Celtics, if you're Brad Stevens, if Neesmith can get that 7th spot, like earn that, that's fantastic because that gives you all sorts of more flexibility in terms of how you want to build this team going forward. Because there is going to be a lot of redundancy there in the wing if Neesmith raises his level and Pritchard keeps coming along, and then like we said, if Romeo shows that hey, you should I actually deserve to be playing even though that there's not minutes for me, then you can get creative in terms of how you want to upgrade the roster.
Because I was looking at the box score from yesterday's game, and you see that like the Jays played, I think like 25 and 25 or something. Like certainly 26 for Jalen, um, 25 for Jason, and you figure they're most games they're in the mid 30s, right? So another 10 minutes each, say,
Right.
and then you see Grant played 9.5 minutes. Romeo played for some reason he's not showing. Oh, Romeo played 10 minutes. So it's almost like that those 10 minutes that are normally
Yeah.
going to go to the Jays, like Grant and Romeo just slid in and filled that spot. And then
Right.
everyone else, and Cantor played 9 minutes. I wonder how much we'll see him on a regular basis in the regular season. But I don't know. I love you. See, Forsberg wrote a column today saying that maybe Neesmith is the 5th starter.
It's if he looks like he did in the 4th quarter, that's certainly going to give you the best offensive upside of that group without, taking too much away from your bench. But I mean,
It feels a
let's
little
talk.
early. It feels a little
It
early
does
for
feel
me.
like right. I mean, it's you look pretty vulnerable defensively, especially against bigger guys. If you go Neesmith in there, since you're giving up a lot in the size department, and you're putting a lot of pressure on Tatum and Brown out of the gate on that front. So it seems like with the options they have with Horford, with Hernan Gomez, with even like a Grant Williams type, like you might want to do that on some nights against certain teams, but by and large, my guess is that they're going to go big and try to kind of stack the bench of offense. So what I do want like the Hernan Gomez look. I mean, Hernan Gomez just being in the rotation. Are you in or out on that? We know he's not going to be starting full time here. It looks like, but
No,
they want to get a
damn.
look at it. I know, sorry, Wancho, but what did you what did you is he bringing anything to the table that interests you here? He didn't really. I feel like he kind of just stayed out of the way on offense and tried to craft the offensive glass, which honestly is probably not a bad choice for him if he's trying to make friends here.
Yeah, I mean, he took 2 shots, he took 1 3, and you talk about, like, in what ways is he going to be most effective? It'd be maybe as a three-point shooter, but I also like, there was one stretch he was out there with the Jays, Marcus, and it was just Al instead of, Rob.
Right.
So the star except Al instead of Rob, and there was some great spacing on offense there. You could just really see that there was that one play, must have been the first half. I feel like Marcus, like, took his guy one-on-one out of the half court, did, like, a little, I don't know. Basically, just bro. I forget who was even guarding. It might have been Anthony. But it was just so clear. The paint was so clear. The defense was spread so thin that Marcus was just able out of the half court set to break his guy down one on one and finished in the paint. So I think those are ways, obviously, when where Hernan Gomez can help. But I don't know. I mean, +6 in 17 minutes. That's not bad. But he was kind of just it was just kind of a neutral game, I would say, which is better than bad, but not quite as good as positive. And speaking of Robb, um, one of
That might have been his
seven.
worst game ever
One of,
last
but you
night.
know what I liked? So he was 1 of 7, which is very un-Robb, right? A guy who shoots close to 80% at times. I like that he was taking those shots. Like he took a couple mid-range jump shots. Obviously, they didn't go in, but I like that he's at least trending towards maybe having that be part of his game. I like that he's thinking about taking those shots because if he can start consistently hitting a 15-footer, maybe even some days, maybe you can push it back a little bit. It'd be a start. Like that changes his effectiveness. He's already so effective, but like, I think that it would really open up stuff for not just him, but for the Celtics if he can start hitting those shots.
Yeah, and that's practice that all you want in the next 2 weeks. Like, get them all up, especially if defenses are gonna take away the paint entirely from you on the roll, like, get that practice in. But I do wonder how much leash he's gonna have on those once the real games start, and when you're
Yeah, you got to start
75%
hitting
sure.
him at some point.
You gotta
Yeah,
start hitting him at some point, so, like, it'll be but, yeah, that's something even, even in summer league and stuff like that, you can tell at least the past coaching staff didn't want him to take a few of those, even though I think he hit them at a respectable rate last year. I feel like there's a few games where he knocked down a couple of them, and he's clearly getting more comfortable with them. But yeah, you're right. Like those are the tools you want to have. You don't want to be relying on them, but if defenses have to at least think twice about getting out there on you, if you've made the first one, then that's obviously a win for the team and spacing. But I do wonder, like, is Rob 100% your starting center? Like, is there any? I wonder if they look at like the Horford Hernan Gomez front court and then bring Rob as just a rim runner off the bench, and obviously he's playing the same minutes essentially, but maybe taking some of the onus off of him. I wonder if that is a consideration at all to start this year, or if he has the keys to the car.
yeah. Oh, he was 0 for 7 actually. I think he only had one foul shot. Yeah, that feels like a step back. I don't know. I don't think we're ready to do that with him. Like maybe at worst case, maybe you say, hey, maybe you step back your game a little bit. Like don't maybe go back the way you were playing last year and not really worrying about those mid-range jump shots. Even that he had a guy took a guy in the post and took a jump hook at one point. He missed it, but he took it. But yeah, I don't want to the lessen his role right now.
Yeah, and I mean, I doubt the team wants. It was just like a floating hypothetical in terms of like maximizing him because it wouldn't be lessening his role essentially. I mean, because he could still close games and stuff like that. It would just be, are you better? Especially, I guess my one concern of him, the missed shots aside, 'cause it's just one game, is if they're going to be switching everything defensively, which it looks like they're trying to do a lot, based on last night, he's going to, he struggled to get out to the 3-point line a few times, and that is a tough ask, and not necessarily that's going to be any, for Al or anyone in that position, that's going to
Yeah,
be a
that's
tough
what I was
ask.
thinking as Al. Yeah.
But you wonder again if I'm curious to see how Udoka approaches that, knowing that it's going to be a challenge for any big in that spot.
Richardson and Schroeder combined 2 of 15. Not a great start.
I guess that's why they're available.
What's funny is that Richardson was plus 11, Schroeder was minus 12.
Huh. I thought Schroeder played better over. Actually, Richardson was really good defensively. I'll say that. Schroeder, just a lot of Rondo vibes. I mean, this is not like a new
Yeah.
take on this, but
Scal was saying that on it's on TV.
turning down a lot of shots, looking to pass, which is again a good thing when you have guys hitting shots, but that wasn't the case last night. But yeah, I like the defensive energy from both.
Yeah, and Schroeder had the great alley oop to Al. He had a great feed to Cantor later in the game. Like he's a guy like he knows how to run a team. You get that sense, and that's something that certainly they didn't really. I guess when everyone was healthy, maybe last year, but like that's a really and if he's gonna be your sixth man, um, that's someone and I don't really think of the word reliable when I think of Schroeder, but when he's out there and when he's focused, he's a very solid second point guard. So I think again, he had four assists, 3 rebounds, 2 steals, filled up the stat sheet. Um, but yeah, those two were also 0 of 4 from three. I'd obviously like to see. Uh, yeah.
The Richardson drives were not pretty. There was a
No.
lot of and whatever,
Let's
it's
hope I
one
get a
game.
whistle kind of stuff. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Just not, and that's the one other thing, like who outside of Brown and Tatum, like it's hard to figure out who else on this team will get to the line. Schroeder should be able to do that. He used to do that early, create that contact at the rim. He's probably the next best chance, but Horford is allergic to the paint these days. I mean, a lot of that is by choice, but then there's no one else really that you can count on to get there, or at least to create reliable contact there. So you'd hope that both of those guys will eventually be able to do that in games that matter.
Did you catch that GM survey that came out just as we were about to record?
I did see that, and I didn't see a lot of Celtics on there.
Not a lot of
In any
love,
format.
and I guess so. Here's the thing. Like I was a little, I guess, a little bit surprised by the lack of Celtic attention, but when I really thought about it, I don't know. I don't think it's that deserving. You know what I mean? Like there were very few spots where I could look and make an argument. Big wait, you forgot you forgot Tatum, you forgot Jalen. So I think I there were a few spots where they were listed. Which team has the most promising young core? The Celtics finished third, 7%. The Hawks, clearly, I think everyone can agree. 50% of GMs picked the Hawks with the most promising young core, and then the Rockets, very different kind of promising young core than the Celtics, but the Rockets, because they have so many
So that's surprising.
young
That was a
players.
surprising pick to me to have Rockets second there, because I mean they have a lot of guys, but who's the slam dunk prospect on there outside of their most recent, like Green? Like I'm
Yeah,
not
and I
sure.
guess you probably do. They still include Wood like as a young player. How old is he actually? Is he probably older than?
He's got to be mid-20s at this point, I think. I know he was undrafted or was taken late in the second round and bounced around for a couple years before he broke
Yeah,
out for the
he just
Pistons.
turned 26, so I don't think
Yeah,
he
so that's
counts.
yeah.
But I mean, they have what Jalen Green? Do they have? I know
Yeah, Green.
he's the favorite to win the rookie of the year according to the
Yeah.
GMs. So and they have obviously what P friend from Turkey, the guy who they took with the Celtics
The Celtics
16th
pick.
pick this year.
Watch closely.
And I guess right, like if you want to, Kevin Porter again is a guy that I think has a lot of talent. Like, is he ever going to channel it in a way that's going to work on a winning team? We'll see.
Right.
He's still considered young. But yeah, then the Celtics at 7% are third in the GM
Not
survey. Not bad.
so again, that's I think more of a reflection of last season than anything else, and just you have Brown and Tatum, but then all these picks you took the last couple of years, no one's fully buying into them yet, which
Who
rightfully
is
so.
who is the best perimeter defender in the NBA? Drew Holiday got 50% of the votes. Ben Simmons got 17%. Jimmy Butler third, and then also getting a vote, Marcus Smart.
Okay.
And that's
Put that.
and that is understandable. Where one GM say who's the best perimeter defender? Yeah, I guess Marcus Smart. But you can't get upset. Be like, I can't believe they think that Jimmy Butler is better than Marcus Smart. Maybe he is. Kawhi Leonard also got 10%. I think you can argue is probably, when he's healthy, a better perimeter defender than Marcus Smart. Then finally, which new or relocated head coach will make the biggest impact on his new team? Rick Carlisle gets 64%
Whew.
of the vote. Ime second, 14%.
Now, do you feel like that's a reflection of like the previous Pacers coach was just so bad
Right, he has
that
more room
they get
to
more and
improve.
more room, whereas Brad Stevens, yeah, like they had a bad year, but how much is he was at fault for that? I think he was pretty far down the list of things that like were rough about last season.
Yeah, and it also might just be out of respect for Rick Carlisle. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I'm sure he's been. I don't know if he's been a mentor for a lot of these guys. I'd be lying if I said that.
He's a president of the Coaches Association, so that has to count for something.
Is he?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah. If that's the case, that's kind of what I'm saying. Like, he's a legend, right? He won a title. He's going to a place that has a lot of talent, like for sure. Not that the Celtics don't, but the Pacers are pretty loaded as well. So yeah, it's sort of deferential to Carlisle, but it's also nice to see that Ime got it was respected enough to come in second place. Jason Kidd was third at 11%.
I would
Also
hope that.
receiving votes: Chauncey Billups, Jamal Mosley, Wes Unseld Jr.
How many new coaches were there this year? Like 7, 8?
I want to say 7.
Yeah, it's a hefty. Almost everyone got a mention. Got at least a
Yeah,
paper
that's
for
right. Who's the one new coach that
who's
didn't
the
get
one
any list?
guy. Yeah, I'll have to look that up, but I think that covered pretty much everyone. Maybe Willie Green. Willie Green got left out of there in New
New
Orleans.
Orleans.
Tough break, Willie. And then the Celtics were picked, was it 6th overall in the East
Yeah,
in the rankings here? So like,
again, right? Like I
can't really argue too much of it. Like, even though
they
where would you
got
put them? We haven't made. We'll wait on our predictions until the preseason comes. But I'm not going to fault any executives who think that 6. I imagine these were taken before the Simmons holdout too.
I
And
was just thinking that I don't know if there's a date in there when it was because Philly you see is 4, right?
right. So that will be right now I think it's fair to say if he is not playing and they have no return for him yet, he's not going to be in that slot. But I have another question for you, Rich, on this though. How many GMs do you think actually filled this out as opposed to random parts of the front office or like, the secretary
Yeah,
or
that was gonna be
the
part of my
assistant?
question too. Like, who do like, especially with the Celtics, like when you say give this to the GM, there's no one that has that title on
That's true. So
their
does
name tag.
Brad just hand it to off to his newest employee, like someone he just hired, or the low man on the totem pole, like, hey, like you have this week off, here, go do this for me.
Yeah, you wonder again. They do this every year. Who knows? That would be a fun story to get to the truth behind this GM survey. By the way, Damon Stoudemire did get a vote for best assistant coach.
Huh.
Can't confirm whether it was Ime who made the vote. Actually, no, that it would have been Brad or whoever did it. But I can't confirm that it wasn't a Celtic that voted for him. But he did make the list, which is pretty cool. Miami, pretty solid in 3rd place, according to these GMs.
The GMs love Kyle Lowry. He was, I think, far and away like the best offseason addition, vote there. And I mean, the Heat, it makes a lot of sense on paper. You wonder as those guys get older if they got everyone a year or two too late with like PJ Tucker and Larry, etc. But if everyone kind of plays their role there, that's certainly I think a clear cut number 3, at least when the playoffs roll around, that you don't want to see.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, right. When the playoffs roll around, that's a good way to say it. I'm getting sort of like Nets vibes a little bit, like after the Pierce and KG trade. Like Lowry's going to be 36 years old this season.
And how long a deal did he get? They gave him a 3-year deal.
Is that I am not positive.
I think it's definitely, yeah, I think it was 3, either 3 or 4. But that's a lot of cash for a guy who's 36 and has a pretty long injury history of like someone like Smart who always gives up his body, and you wonder
That's
at
what I
what
worry.
point is
That's
that
what I
going to
worry
be.
about.
So 10 more years of that, like for Smart, you wonder what he's going to be looking like at that stage of his career. But
They
for now,
picked up
that's going
a
to be
they picked up a Morris twin as well. I didn't realize that. The Heat did.
Markieff. Yeah,
They got Marquise. Yeah, where's Marcus? Did he resign with the Clippers?
yeah, he's with the Clippers still. He's probably looking at his chops this season. He's going to be the second leading scorer on that team, probably with Kawhi out.
So one of the other questions in the survey: which head coach makes the best in-game adjustments? Ty Lue.
Whoa,
Yeah, kind of
I would not
surprising.
have. Yeah, I mean, he certainly. Ty Lue has a sneaky good track record as a head coach now. Like you guide the Cavs. I mean, it worked out pretty well for him in terms of like, guiding that Cleveland team to the title. He got out of Cleveland immediately after LeBron left. What was that? 6 games where they like made him
Right.
get fired. Like great move.
Yeah, I would say not
Um,
a dumb move on
not a dumb
Ty's
move at
part.
all. It's like I'm just not going to do what the front office wants. So you can
Mhm.
fire me and I get all my money.
By the way, I think
Take a year
Urban Meyer
off,
might be taking a page out of that book as we speak.
right? But yeah, I think he did a good job last postseason. I mean, once Kawhi went down, they put up a decent fight without him. But I would not have guessed. Like, I don't know who comes to the top of your mind for that. Like out of anyone in the NBA right now,
For in-game
or best
adjustments,
yeah, for
I
in-game
don't know.
adjustment.
Yeah, not Mike Budenholzer. Although that he was second. Tibbs was still very much the best defensive scheming coach. But Budenholzer was second on that list, which is respectable. Um, yeah, I don't know. I'm just excited to see what Ime does. Right, like his first chance as a head coach right here, and we got to see a little bit, last night. Just what this team is gonna bring to the court every night in this new regime. And I went back. We started with that first possession, that passing that got Tatum that wide open 3-point shot. Just keep it rolling. If they can just keep that, it's not about focus, just that mentality. I think just people are going to start having fun and winning games. And that's going to cure any of that stuff that they had to deal with last year. It'll be much easier. There won't be as much to listen to in the media, but
Right.
like just start playing together, start having fun, and they have the talent again. And they don't have those championship expectations anymore. There's not that doom and gloom if they're not like in the first, second, or third seed. Like they're almost playing for next year. So just like I don't know. I hope they take it in the right direction. There are two ways it can go, right? Like you can get down on yourself, it can become a negative, and you can just lose the thread on where they're going. And again, like who knows? Like the Bradley Beal's, I'm gonna say behavior, but his stance on the vaccine that takes me back, sets me back a little bit in terms of really wanting to build around him
You can take
for the
one of
future.
those first round picks back in the offer. You say, take, no, I'll give you the 2 first rounders, not 3 though.
Yeah, that
Um,
bummed me out a little bit.
well, I wonder, and I do wonder all these guys. I mean, he's not in a spot like Wiggins was, and now Kyrie, where it's going to cost him games and money by not getting it, based on the location.
All right.
Um, but yeah, you do wonder. I mean, for all these teams in those, areas, whether that will, impact them going after him or anyone else who might be still holding out on
But
getting
when
a
the Wizards
vaccine.
play in New York, right? Like he'll have
Well,
to.
apparently they're exempt. Like away teams are exempt from the rule, so it's only
Oh,
the home players. So that's why Wiggins and Kyrie were firmly under the microscope this week. Kyrie still is. Apparently didn't practice today since they were
saw
back in
that.
New York. Um, but going back to wrap things up on Udoka, of like, I'm 100% with you in terms of like the carefree kind of buy-in. Everything seems to be on the right page, at least from the first week of camp, when the vibes you get from the players. I don't think this is going to be easy for Udoka at all in terms of like who you're going to play every night here with this roster. There are no easy choices outside of 3 or 4 guys that you want to start. But after that, you could make the case for like 3 or 4 different guys off the bench each night, like depending on how things are going. So I'm very curious to see who each rolls with, who he trusts, how long of a leash he gives to guys, how much of an opportunity he gives to younger guys. Like I do not envy him there, because as we saw last night, like you're just starting to throw stuff around, and that's without even seeing the likes of like Langford and Cantor for the first 3 quarters of the game. Um, so that's gonna be a fascinating subplot to me as we roll through this preseason and get ready for the real ones.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. It's game one, somewhat in the books. Game one with an asterisk still is in the books, and we're here for the season. We're ready.
In the meantime, hit us up at Winning Plays Pod on Twitter, at Rich_Levine. I'm at Brian T. Robb. Check out my stuff at Mass Live as well. Subscribe to the Winning Plays Pod. Rate, review us, iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. And we'll be back in the next couple weeks here. We're starting to go through some of the big names, players for this team, and preview them ahead of the season. What do you call these, capsules, Rich? This little,
Yeah,
yeah, we'll
we
go with
could say
that.
that,
Player
or
capsules.
just go back. We just go back and delete this part when we think of the
Do
actual
that.
name.
Stay tuned for that. All right, so look for those coming out later this week and next week. And in the meantime, thanks for listening.